Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually, when we sit down to record these,
Yeah,
we're looking at a new study or maybe a recent book release, something that feels, I don't know, educational.
right. Something a bit more academic.
Exactly. But today feels completely different. We have got a stack of notes here based on a transcript from the launch of a 30-day AI series. And specifically, we're looking at the day one material featuring two voices, Delson and Dara.
And it is intense.
It really is. I have to be honest with you, right off the bat, this did not feel like a standard lesson. It felt more like a warning shot.
That is exactly the vibe I got. It's less, here is a fun tutorial, and way more, the ground is literally moving beneath you. Why aren't you running?
Right. The urgency in this text is just palpable. The premise they set up is basically that if you are still sitting there thinking artificial intelligence is optional or that you can just kind of wait and see how it all shakes out,
You're already behind.
you might already be in deep trouble. Yeah. Delson, who is the host figure in source material, actually says this information might change your life. Now, we hear that kind of hype all the time in the tech space.
Oh, constantly. Everything changes your life.
Exactly. So my first thought was, is this just marketing? Or is there real substance to that panic?
It's a completely fair question, because the hype cycle is a very real thing. But when you really dig into the arguments that Dara presents, she's the strategist in this duo, you realize she isn't trying to sell you a specific software product.
Right.
She is trying to sell a reality check. The whole mission of today's deep dive is to unpack her argument that we are living through the fastest technological shift in human history. And the part that really made me pause was her assertion that later is already too late.
That exact phrase stuck with me too. Later is already too late. But I want to challenge that for a second because, look, we have survived massive shifts before.
Sure.
We survived the rise of the internet. We survived the smartphone era. We survived the whole social media boom. All of those were considered massive, life-altering shifts. So why does Dara think this is any different? Why the doom and gloom timeline?
It really comes down to one word, and that's velocity. Dara makes a very specific comparison in the transcript. She argues that this shift is faster than the internet and faster than the mobile revolution.
How so?
Well, think about the internet adoption curve. It took roughly a decade to go from clunky dial-up modems tying up your phone line to broadband being standard in homes.
Oh, I remember the AOL discs in the mail.
Right, it gave people a lot of time to adjust. Companies had these luxury 5-year plans to quote-unquote get online.
Yeah, my parents resisted getting an email account for years, and it was totally fine. They didn't lose their jobs overnight just because they preferred sending faxes.
Exactly. But Dara is suggesting that the velocity of AI adoption is compressing those timelines from years down into months. It isn't coming in the sense that, say, self-driving cars have been coming for the last 10 years.
Right, always 5 years away.
Yes. She emphasizes heavily that it is already here, the tools are fully deployed, the integration into the software we already use is happening in real time. So that adjustment period you just mentioned,
The luxury of waiting.
yeah, it doesn't really exist this time around.
Okay, so the sheer speed is the main differentiator, but then there's the question of who this is actually for, because I think there is still this massive mental block for a lot of people out there.
Oh, definitely.
I know highly intelligent, very capable people who still think, well, I'm not a coder. I don't work in Silicon Valley. I don't wear a hoodie to work. This AI stuff is just for the tech bros.
You've hit on maybe the absolute most dangerous stereotype out there right now. And Delson and Dara actually spent a really good chunk of this transcript trying to completely dismantle it.
Which I'm glad they did.
Me too. Delson asks the question explicitly to her, who actually needs to learn AI? And Dara's answer isn't programmers or data scientists.
It's everyone.
It's everyone, period.
She actually lists them out, and honestly, a few of these really surprised me. She mentions entrepreneurs, which, sure, that makes total sense. Employees, obviously.
Right.
But then she also lists content creators, students, and this is the one that got me stay-at-home parents.
Did that catch you off guard?
It really did. I mean, usually when we sit down and talk about disruptive tech, we aren't talking about managing a household. Why on earth does she include them in this high-stakes environment?
I think it's brilliant, actually, because it proves the absolute universality of the tool. Just think about what a stay-at-home parent actually does on a daily basis.
A lot of chaos management.
Exactly. It's pure logistics. It's meal planning. It's budgeting. It's organizing schedules. It's providing educational support for the kids. It is essentially high-level project management for a small, very chaotic organization.
That is a great way to put it.
And Dara's making the point that AI isn't just about writing code or building apps. It is an efficiency engine. If a parent can use AI to plan an entire month of meals, generate a highly specific grocery shopping list, and create a custom tutoring plan for their kid's math test, all in about 5 minutes,
That's massive.
it is a massive quality of life upgrade.
That really puts it in perspective for me. It's not about learning how to build the robot. It's about using the robot to get your Saturday back.
Precisely. And it connects to the bigger picture that there really is no safe harbor here. Back in the Industrial Revolution, if you were a writer or a teacher, the steam engine didn't really change your day-to-day work at all.
Right. You just kept doing your thing.
But AI deals in information and logic. If your life involves any form of information, whether that's high-level corporate strategy or just organizing a PTA fundraiser, this technology touches you.
So if literally everyone needs to learn it, we have to talk about the threat. Because let's be real with each other, the reason people are clicking on these headlines and biting into these series isn't just to get their Saturdays back.
No, it's not.
It's fear. It is the deep-seated fear of being obsolete. Delson brings this up in the source material, the fear of replacement. And this leads to the line that I think everyone listening needs to hear.
I think I know exactly the one you're talking about.
Dara says, and I'm quoting here, AI won't replace you. Someone using AI will.
It is the absolute core thesis of her entire argument.
But let's push back on that a little bit. Is that just a clever semantic trick? Because, look, if I lose my job, I don't really care if it was a giant server rack that took it or...
A guy named Steve.
Right. A guy named Steve using a server rack. The result is the exact same for me. I'm still out of a job. Why does this specific distinction actually matter?
It matters immensely because it defines exactly who your competition is. If you think your enemy is, quote-unquote, the machine, you are going to feel totally helpless.
Because you can't beat a machine.
Exactly. You cannot outcalculate a computer. You just can't. But if you realize your competition is simply a human with a machine, well, that is a game you can actually play. It completely reframes the problem. It's not human versus AI. It's human versus human plus.
Human plus. I like that term. But I have to say, it's also pretty terrifying. Because it implies that the baseline for basic competence just shot straight through the roof.
It absolutely did. Think about it this way. If you are an architect today, you aren't competing against an AI program that independently draws blueprints. You are competing against another human architect who can use AI to generate 5 completely different, highly detailed concept variations in the time it takes you to just open up your CAD software.
Which brings us to the numbers, because the transcript throws out some metrics on this newfound efficiency that honestly sound a bit fake to me.
They are staggering.
They talk about compressing time. Dara says what used to take 10 hours now takes 1.
It sounds like pure hyperbole, doesn't it?
It sounds like a late-night infomercial. Lose 20 pounds in 20 minutes.
Right, totally. But in this specific context, she's talking about knowledge work tasks. Things like drafting a 50-page proposal, analyzing a massive, messy spreadsheet, summarizing an hour-long meeting into actionable bullet points.
The tedious stuff.
The huge time sucks. If you can automate the drudgery of that first draft or the basic data entry, you really are compressing that timeline by an order of magnitude. And then she drops the other shoe, which is what used to require an entire team, now only requires one skilled operator.
See, that is the part that genuinely makes me nervous for the broader economy. If one single person can do the work of a 5-person team.
What happens to the other 4 people?
Exactly.
That is the uncomfortable question. And Dara doesn't sugarcoat it at all. This is her argument about leverage. In the tech world, we've always talked about the quote-unquote 10x engineer.
Right. The unicorn coder who is magically 10 times better than everyone else.
Exactly. Dora is arguing that AI essentially makes a 10x everyone possible. But the flip side of that coin is crucial. As she points out, if you don't learn this, you are actively competing against people who are moving 10 times faster than you.
And as she puts it in the transcript, speed wins.
Speed wins. In a hyper-connected global marketplace, speed is the ultimate currency. If your competitor can iterate their product, test their marketing, and handle their customer service 10 times faster than you can, you don't just lose a little market share.
You get wiped out.
You become completely irrelevant.
So the stakes here, at least according to the source material, are income and opportunity. It's about the gap between the haves and the have-nots growing wider and wider every single month. But instead of money being the dividing line, it's leverage.
Exactly. Who has the leverage to scale their output without scaling their actual working hours? That is the new dividing line in the modern workforce.
Okay, I want to pivot here. Because we've established the speed, we've established the scope, and we've hammered home the threat. If you are listening to this right now, you might be feeling a mix of, okay, I need to do this, and oh my God, I am so incredibly overwhelmed.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, because you open up ChatGPT or Claude or whatever tool, and there is just a blank white screen and a blinking cursor. I feel like I need a master's degree in computer science just to know what to type into the box.
That feeling of I'm not technical enough is hands down the biggest barrier to entry. Delson brings that up explicitly in the source. People fear it's too technical, or they worry that they are already too late to the party to catch up.
But Dora offers an analogy here that I think is probably the most helpful part of the entire transcript.
The electricity analogy.
Yes.
Walk us through that.
She says, and this is brilliant, you don't need to understand how electricity works to turn on a light. You just need to know where the switch is. See, I want to dig into that, though, because electricity is consistent. I walk into a room, I flip the switch, the light turns on every time.
Sure.
AI isn't always that perfectly consistent. Sometimes I flip the switch, so to speak, and it hallucinates some weird fact, or it just gives me a super generic, boring corporate answer. Is the analogy really fair?
It is a totally fair critique, but I think her deeper point is about the depth of understanding required to extract value. You don't need to know how a large language model weighs its tokens or calculates neural network probabilities.
Right, I don't need to do the math.
You absolutely don't need the math. Finding the switch in this specific context simply means learning the practical skill of prompting. It means learning how to talk to it.
So knowing where the switch is just means knowing how to ask the right question.
Exactly. It is about being a highly effective user, not a builder. If you start treating AI like a utility like running water or the internet connection in your house, you realize you just need to know how to apply it to your specific immediate problem.
Okay, give me an example.
So for a freelance writer, the switch is knowing how to say, draft me 10 engaging headlines based on this specific article transcript. For the stay-at-home parent we talked about earlier, the switch is create a 7-day gluten-free meal plan for a very picky toddler.
You don't need to look under the hood to drive the car.
Precisely. And once you finally accept that, the learning curve completely changes shape. It goes from this vertical, unclimbable wall of learning to code to a very gentle slope of just learning to ask better questions. You just have to start flipping switches and see what lights up.
But what if I just don't? What if I stubbornly abstain? Because there is a certain romanticism, I think, to doing things the quote-unquote old way.
The craftsman approach.
Yeah, I'm an artisan. I don't need the machine. But the source material paints a pretty grim picture for the do-nothing scenario, doesn't it?
It really does. And this is where the transcript gets surprisingly heavy. Dara actually lists 3 main consequences for those who choose to ignore this wave. And the first one is just visceral. She says they become invisible.
Invisible. That is a haunting word to use for someone's career.
It is, because it implies that you are still physically there. You are still showing up to the office. You are still doing the work, putting in the hours, but the rest of the world has completely moved on.
Wow.
While everyone else is operating at this new 10x speed, discussing totally new workflows and producing at a much higher level, you just slowly fade into the background. Your work matters less simply because it's too slow and too expensive compared to the new baseline standard.
And that leads directly into the second consequence she mentions, which is working harder for less.
Which is the ultimate tragedy of inefficiency.
Yeah.
We often have this mindset that if we are struggling and sweating and grinding away, we're doing something noble. But in this new scenario, you aren't lazy. You might be working 12-hour days.
Giving it your all.
Right. But if your competition, that Human Plus we talked about, is doing that exact same volume of work in one single hour, the objective market value of your labor plummets. You are working much harder, but your comparative output is just lower.
That is a brutal reality check. It's not that your work isn't good anymore. It's that your work is fundamentally inefficient. And the free market will always punish inefficiency.
Always. And then there's the third point, which I actually think is the most insightful part of their whole discussion. It's about the timing of when you choose to learn.
This is the power versus pressure dynamic they bring up.
Right. Dara argues that eventually you won't even have a choice. You will be forced to learn AI. It's not actually optional in the long run. But, and this is the vital key, If you wait, you will be forced to learn it under extreme pressure, rather than from a position of power.
She specifically says learning under pressure is expensive.
Think about what that actually means in real life.
Yeah.
Learning something new when you are naturally curious, when your job is totally secure, when you are just playing around with it on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
That is empowering. That is the day one mindset.
Sure, it's fun.
But learning something because you just got laid off, or because your boss just pulled you into a meeting and threatened to let you go if you don't catch up to the new metrics by Friday.
That's just pure stress. That's panic mode.
It is, and that is incredibly expensive, emotionally, psychologically, and obviously financially. You are frantically scrambling just to survive,
Yes.
rather than learning how to thrive.
And it's the cost of lost opportunity, too. I mean, if you spend 6 agonizing months playing catch-up while you're frantic, that is 6 months you weren't out there building or scaling or profiting.
Exactly. And that is why the source material frames this entire discussion around the concept of day one. It's an idea popularized by Amazon, of course, but here it simply means start right now.
Maintain that beginner's mindset.
Yes. Don't assume you know everything, and please don't assume it's already too late to start.
Delson asks about that mindset shift in the transcript. He asks what someone practically needs to do right now. And the core answer is to just see it as a tool, much like social media or the internet were just tools. But he also touches on this idea of comfort.
He does. He says something along the lines of, if this episode made you think, if it made you uncomfortable, good.
Good, because growth starts with discomfort.
It is a classic Stoic idea, but it applies so perfectly here. You know that underlying anxiety you might be feeling, that knot in your stomach when you hear us talking about 10x productivity and people doing your job in an hour.
The panic.
Yeah, that is actually a crucial signal. It's an internal signal that you are finally confronting the reality of this massive shift.
And the natural temptation is to just retreat, to say, you know what, this is way too much. I'm going to go back to my familiar spreadsheets and just pretend this whole AI thing isn't happening.
But if you retreat to what is comfortable, you will stagnate. If you lean into that discomfort, that is exactly where the growth happens. The source sets this up as the beginning of a 30-day journey, which implies that consistency is the key here. You do not learn this overnight.
Right, you don't become an absolute expert in an hour.
No, but you have to start.
So let's try to synthesize all of this for you listening, because we have covered a lot of ground today. We've looked at the staggering speed of it, faster than the internet rollout. We've looked at the scope, how it affects literally everyone, from the corporate CEO down to the stay-at-home parent. We've looked at the sheer leverage compressing 10 hours of grueling work into one single hour.
And most importantly, we have looked at the choice you have to make. Because the choice is not AI versus no AI.
That ship has sailed.
That choice has already been made for us by the market. The real choice is learn it now on your own terms, or learn it later on someone else's terms.
It really does boil down to survival and leverage. You know, going through this transcript and prepping for today, it is so easy to get caught up in the fear-mongering aspect of it all. The idea of becoming invisible in your own career is terrifying, but the source material really pivots it to a message of personal empowerment. It's about giving yourself superpowers before everyone else has them.
That is hands down the most optimistic way to view it. It is an open invitation to dramatically upgrade your own capability. But, and we have to stress this, the invitation has a strict expiration date. Dara insists that we are still early, but not for long.
Not for long. That is the kicker. The window for being an early adopter is actively closing. Right now, knowing how to prompt an AI really well might get you a promotion. Or it might land you a huge new client because you're seen as the wizard in the office.
Right.
In 2 years, that might just be the bare minimum baseline requirement for having a job at all.
It totally reminds me of the history of typing.
Oh, how so?
Well, 50 or 60 years ago, being a typist was a highly specialized job. You could make an entire lucrative career out of just knowing how to type quickly now. If you cannot type, you basically cannot participate in the modern knowledge economy.
That's so true. We don't even put typing on our resumes anymore.
We don't. It is completely assumed.
That is a perfect parallel. We are rapidly moving toward a world where AI literacy is just considered basic literacy.
Exactly.
So what does this actually mean for you listening right now? It means that comforting feeling of, I will get to it later, is a very dangerous luxury. Delson and Dara are telling us very clearly that the train is leaving the station. You can either be on it, actively driving it, or you can be standing on the tracks wondering what just hit you.
And please remember the electricity analogy. You do not need to go out and build a power generator. You do not need to learn how to code Python. Just go find the light switch in your own daily life.
Start small.
Start very small. Pick one single task. Maybe it's one annoying email you have to write, one meal plan for the week, or one messy spreadsheet, and just ask an AI to help you with it. But you have to start today.
That is the ultimate takeaway. Treat today as your own day one.
You know, before we officially sign off, there's one final lingering thought I want to leave everyone with. It goes all the way back to that metric we discussed of 10 hours becoming 1 hour.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have spent our entire lives, basically from kindergarten, conditioned to believe that working hard is the ultimate virtue. We tell our kids, just work hard and you will succeed.
Put your nose to the grindstone.
Exactly. That simply putting in the long hours is what guarantees success. But we are entering a really weird, totally new era. If your competition that someone else using AI can accomplish in 1 hour what takes you all day long to do C, we really have to ask ourselves a very provocative, very uncomfortable question.
Which is?
How long until working hard becomes completely irrelevant compared to working smart?
Wow, that hits hard.
It does. Because in this completely new reality, immense effort without leverage might just be wasted energy.
Effort without leverage is wasted energy. That is definitely something to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on today's deep dive. It's been a lot to process, I know, but hey, that's what we're here for. We will see you in the next one.